What have been some of your experiences in Africa? Give us a little insight.
Yeah,
into that.
you know, I've been 3 times now, which is hysterical. Every time I tell my parents these travels that I go on, they're like, and to think we were nervous about you being a preacher's kid growing up in Mississippi, and will he ever see the world? But I've been 3 times. I've been able to go to South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Egypt, and Sudan, and it's been so amazing. I mean, meeting people there and really seeing the need. I mean, I had some amazing trips before, but this last trip I went to southern Sudan, and we had to sit before about 200 or 300 people basically pleading for water out of a village of about 15,000.
Wow.
And so I'd always known there was a need. I mean, I'd stayed in orphanages. I'd spent time with HIV/AIDS people that have got those diseases, and so there was always a sense of immediacy. But this, I think, when I met these people who said literally, like, we won't live without water. This town of 15,000 people in southern Darfur where I was, they don't have any wells. And so, that's really lit much more of a fire for me, because I believed it before. There was never a doubt. I always knew the need. But I think when you see face-to-face people that are saying, this isn't about comfort, it's literally about living,
right?
There's a real immediacy to the problem. And it's been amazing. I mean, people really, really respond. I've been very blessed that people, I think they just see my feelings, and then they think, okay, this guy seems genuine.
Yeah. And some of the work that you guys are doing there, I mean, tell us a little bit about what you do in a show to talk about Africa, talk about your experience, and then also to even challenge people to contribute and to help in a way that they can.
Well, the Mo Club was started by a buddy of mine, Barrett Ward, and Barrett kind of came up with an idea, and then the second implementation of that idea, that was a huge word.
I like that.
I almost didn't get through it.
That was very good.
We practiced before, thank you. But the way to sort of make it happen was to get people involved. I mean, the Mo Club was a great idea, and the idea was it's $7 a month to be a part of it. That's a cost of about 2 mochas, which is why it's called the Mo Club. And we've got a bunch of projects that we benefit. We have work going on in Uganda and Kenya, Sudan, South Africa. There's a lot of places that we're doing work, but how do you get that to happen? And so we approached artists, and he basically said, would you guys be interested? So we all went, saw it, sort of did one of those, you go, see it with your own eyes, feel it with your own hands, meet the people. And then, so what we've been doing is we go and we play in our shows. In the middle of shows, we start talking about the needs. And each artist has a different thing that they benefit, that their money goes to. So I've been able to help on some clinics, on some orphanages, and now we're building these wells. So, it's just a way to basically engage our culture, especially American culture, in our 20-somethings, 30-somethings, and say, hey, like this, it's like Bono says, we're the generation. I think we really are the generation that's going to be able to have some impact on a real scale, as opposed to like, an intermittent impact. But there seems to be, our generation seems to be very keen to, let's do something about this.
One of the things that is very distinct about your platform and just the way that you've placed yourself or kind of gotten out there in front of folks is you've really taken, it seems like great efforts just to be authentic in front of folks and to be transparent and to be goofy. If you've not checked out just type Dave Barnes on YouTube and you'll quickly see a plethora of videos.
Very self-indicting.
That's
videos.
Exactly right. But they're classic, and honestly, they have hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of hits, which is great. And that's one of the things that we're trying to capture with these videos, or better yet, these interviews, of just real people doing real life as it connects to real faith. Can you talk to us a little bit about your reasoning behind doing that? Why you've chosen not to try to be this perfect face that has no imperfections or no blemishes, but rather just to be a real person and to think that that's going to impact others and it's going to draw others.
That's, and I love that idea, and I think that's a great question. I think I had a really hard year last year in my career, kind of feeling like things just didn't, if I really had visions for last year, none of them were achieved in the way that I really wanted them to be. And I think one of the things that the Lord really had to tell me was, the reason in some ways this isn't working is because it's not you. I really started drinking the Kool-Aid on that whole idea of like, man, look at these people who have been successful in my genre and in my sort of career path, and they sort of look like this. And I literally just I started putting on things that weren't me and taking off parts to try to become that thing. And I think I was miserable. I really was. At the end of last year, I was just really beat up from trying to be something I wasn't. And so I just realized, you know, Lord, like I'm who I am, and who I am is the best I'll ever be. Because there's only one me, you know, and there's a lot of other people, you know, or versions of whoever. Whereas the best I can do is to just be myself. And so to realize that means a lot of things. It means, who have you made me to be? I really need to walk through seasons, continual seasons of realizing what these things, the gifts that you've given me, how do I do that well? And so I think the way that it manifests itself in my career and in my life is just, you know, if I'm an idiot, be an idiot. If I'm funny, try to be funny. If I'm a songwriter. But those things make me up. That's who I am.
Right.
And so it's not fair, and this is a really weird thing to say, but it's not fair to people to not be myself. Because if that's what you're supposed to be, if that's what I'm supposed to be, well then a version of me isn't what God's called me to be. He's called me to be fully who I am in Him. And so I think it's been a real tough, and I'm just beginning, you know, tough season, but I think I'm just beginning to sort of understand, like, not only is it more effective, I see people more moved when I'm myself, but I'm more moved by the idea that I can be who I am, and that, you know, and okay if people don't get that, or if they're kind of like, yeah, it's not something I'm interested in, or whatever, because then it's not so much about me, it's the fact that I can really be at peace with, like, you know, Lord, this is how you made me. And so it's, in some weird way, they're not saying no to me, they're saying no to who you made me to be. And that's not me, that's you, and God's okay with that. You know, exactly. He's not sort of like...
I think that's freeing for a lot of folks.
For sure.
You know, I think that's one of the reasons that folks are drawn to you, to your music, because it's real, but I also think it sets a really healthy example for people. You know, I think that's encouraging for people to say, hey, I'm going to be who God called me to be, and I'm going to be who I'm wired to be, as opposed to being somebody else.
Right.
Which is good for me. You know, I was thinking about being a singer-songwriter, but I decided it's probably not best.
We still got a place in the band.
Hey, one last question. Talk to us a little bit about how you continually deal with, and you've addressed this some, but how you continually deal with the reality that you have a platform. There are thousands of people that daily are checking out DaveBarnes.com, or thousands of people in a week that are going to Dave Barnes concerts, and those type realities that exist in your world. How do you deal with that, and what kind of perspective do you try to keep on that, and what responsibility comes along with it?
You know, it's so funny. I think I haven't. I don't think I've ever really sort of come to grips with that. And I think, you know, there's two ways to treat your platform. You can really own it, and you can really use it for, and I think I do that in some ways. I think the Mocha Club is definitely one of the ways that I really say, okay, I've got these people. But I think the thing that I've realized is, I think half of what, or I sort of wonder if half of what makes me more palatable to people is that I don't own it too much. That there's a real sense of Dave is kind of normal, and it's refreshing that he isn't manipulating his ability to have a platform to do all these things, or to you know, because you can burden people by it if you're not careful. You know what I mean? And I think for me, that's been the real struggle. Is I'm like, well, I mean, it was hysterical. These things, you know, like where like we just released this EP a couple of weeks ago, and we had an amazing first week, sold a few thousand copies of it, and I just thought, really? Yeah, I sincerely had that thought. I was like, wow, people, I guess people like this, you know, and I like that that's a thought, that it's not like, yeah, they heard it, you know, like, so for me, I think it's a real gentle balance of knowing the places where your platform should be used, and then places where you need to let it sit, and let people not be constantly, you know, force those ideas upon. Sort of like, I have another thing I want to tell you about, and here's another part of activism. But to say, you know, there's some things that I want to use this for, and then I also want to let it breathe, you know?
Well, Dave, thanks again so much for not only you giving us your time here today, but ultimately just for what you're doing to impact people and to change people's lives, not only as they listen to music, but as people that potentially will never hear your music on the other end of the globe. It's a good word for us to hear from you, and just thanks for being vulnerable and being authentic, and ultimately keep on keeping on, brother. You're the man. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today for this interview. We will see you next time.